Welcome back to Lisette Invita. Thanks for joining me on this second season of Lisette Invita with our first show. This season will be a little bit different because we are in the midst of a pandemic dealing with COVID-19. So therefore, you may not see people in my kitchen cooking with me, but we'll still be able to have really nice conversation with them. My first guest today is Georges Le Chevallier, who is an international renowned artist who happens to live in my neck of the woods here in North Carolina. He is of Puerto Rican and French descent, but grew up here in the United States in California. Tidbit, him and I went to the same community colleges. And he'll be talking about Shibui paintings and how that influenced his new series of paintings and how he uses spices, out of all things, to create paints and create his paintings. So here we go. So today, like I said, my good friend Georges Le Chevallier is joining us, and Georges is awesome. Georges, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Thank you. It's a pleasure. I've been wanting to be in the show for a long time. So finally, my dream comes true. Thanks.
Unfortunately, I can't cook for you in these times with the whole COVID-19 and the pandemic. This is the best way that we can do this.
Yeah, that's my luck. I always wanted to be in your kitchen so I can eat, but we'll do it again next time.
Next time. There's always a next time with Georges. So.
Yep.
But Georges, I am so intrigued by the art that you're doing lately. I call it food for art in my title for the show. But I want to know how did you make that connection? Where does food take you to create art?
Well, I always liked to paint with textures. Since I started painting at the end of high school, I was always really intrigued by artists who would put a lot of paint in their work. I loved Impressionists, and when I would go to museums to see the work, I was really intrigued with the textures. I would get close to the paint and the painting and study like the colors, but really close, almost too close. I always get in trouble with the police people in the museums. They tell me to move the guards. I lived in Spain for a few years, and Spain, it's really famous for painters that use textures. There's artists like Anthony Tapies, who he would use found materials. There's artists like Jose Maria Sicilia, Miquel Barceló, who they use a lot of materials. So when I was in Spain, I started mixing sand with my paintings and marble dust and anything I could find, which led me to start putting things like rice, even some chicken bones. I have paintings that are
marble dust. Do you really mean marbles, like the toy that kids used to play with?
No. Marble like the stone, like marble like
like countertop marble.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very common material for painting. You mix a little bit of marble dust and it thickens the paint. As a matter of fact, if you paint when you buy gesso, which is a primer for painting, that has marble dust in it already.
Okay, see, I'm learning something.
Yeah.
So, what drove you to use food as your inspiration?
Well, here's what happened. I mean, I always put any kind of material that I could find.
Right.
Food, non-food, paper, perishable, anything would end up in my paintings.
Okay.
What happened about 5 years ago, I got really burnt out. I got, I'm a college professor, so I talk about art all the time. A little psychopath about art history. So any second that I had, I was always studying art history, going to museums, teaching design. And design is all about rules.
Mm.
And about 5 years ago, I had this kind of breakdown that when I go to the studio, everything was really pre-planned. And I found myself in a position that I almost knew too much. Like every time I went to the studio, I had all this baggage about painters, and again, it got to not a happy place. So I literally stopped painting altogether. Like I done. I took. I mean, I tried painting, but it wasn't working out. I wasn't too happy with what's going on. So I literally walked away, and I stopped painting for a while. In the meantime, I started become obsessed with food. I mean, food being Puerto Rican and part French is something that's really important growing up. And I always wanted to be a chef. Before I became a painter officially, it was either between going to be a chef or painter. And all my life, I worked in restaurants. So I was burned out. And the only thing I did for about a year, I watched documentaries about food. Looked at cookbooks. Again, I was really, really intense about the food culture. And lucky for me, around that time, Netflix started to come up with these beautiful documentaries. One of them is Jiro Dreams of Sushi, which is an amazing documentary. And from then, they started to make these documentaries. I think it's called Chef Table.
Yes, I love
Yeah.
Chef's Table.
So I was obsessed with this documentary. So by learning about food, by learning about chefs, then that brought me back to painting. But the way I paint now, I see myself more as a chef than a painter.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
So why is that? What is it that you do that makes it more of cooking or than it is to actually put a
Right.
paintbrush?
Um, the way an artist or not a painter works in the studio is very similar to how a chef creates.
Mhm.
You have to have the mise en place if you're a chef or cook. In painting, you have to get the brushes ready, the colors, the whole setting up, and the fact that you always have like a towel with you. And again, it's I see a lot of similarities. And when I work in restaurants, even though I worked as a waiter, I was always more intrigued of what's going on in the kitchen
Mm.
than in the wait staff. I never liked to wait tables per se, but that was a good excuse for me to be part of the kitchen.
Or close enough to see
Yeah. Oh
what
yeah.
experiments they're coming up with, right?
Yeah. 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 And I like the mentality of a chef in the kitchen, uh, because it's not only they create, but then it's really important to have discipline. They have to be there every single day creating the same dish.
Mm.
So it's this when you work in a kitchen, it's a rush of adrenaline, but
Mhm.
then there's a big camaraderie because everybody it's together. It's kind of like soldiers. You go into battle, you
Right.
get slammed, and you need each other to make everything happen.
Right. Well, it's true, but how do you deal with that I mean, making art is kind of a lonely thing. I mean,
It
it's
is,
like
yeah.
you pouring yourself out. How do how do you compensate that?
It is really lonely. It is really lonely. I don't know. I mean, like I have done experiments before with I did a series of paintings with two other artists. One of them was Paul Frederick and Sean Koenig, and Sean Koenig is kind of a graffiti artist, and Paul Frederick is kind of a cartoonist, and we came together to do a series of paintings, and I thought that was great. It's kind of like musicians coming in together and doing a band,
Hmm.
but mainly the biggest difficulty that we had was everybody they're kind of lone wolves, so everybody has different like schedules and different ways of painting, and it was a really hard to combine everything. But
Yeah.
no, but I like working in teams. I think it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but but again, I guess it's part of the job to to be by yourself.
So how do you get inspired? Like, are there particular dishes that inspire you? I mean, the style that you're painting now is totally different than
Mhm.
5-10 years ago.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
how did you make those transitions?
Well, again, back then when I was like before I had my little breakdown, uh, for me it was about accepting technology. My paintings had a lot of information, a lot of images that were kind of collage of images and words. I really brought all my cultural background. I would write in Spanish, I would write in French, in English. I would find images from Puerto Rico. I would find images from France, from California. And when you came to those, it was kind of a journal, and it's all based about crazy information, a lot of information. And when you look at these paintings, most people were not able to decipher everything. I
Mm,
would have people that grew up in Puerto Rico that would see, or Mexico or Latin American, that would see El Chapulín Colorado, the little heart with the CH. He's like, oh, I know that. But then I would have people, let's say, from France, which is my dad's country, see things that I would include from my childhood. So
mm,
it was all about a lot of information. Um, After I stopped painting, I realized that technology wasn't working too well for me. And here's why: because I'm extremely stressful. And that's one of the reasons
you're a
I
high
also,
strung type of person.
no, it's just to, for me, I have to be bored. And for me to think, I like to go on walks. And one of the things that made me kind of stop was that all my paintings, I was embracing technology. It kind of backfired because now with technology, my work sends me emails at 9 p.m. When I'm at work, my wife texts me. I have Instagram, I have Facebook, I have all these things that I'm always kind of checking.
Right.
So, so when I stopped painting a few years ago, I wanted to, and I also have 5 kids now, so that's really stressful. So I started thinking more as something more meditative. As a matter of fact, when I saw Jiro Dreams of Sushi, I started treating painting like sushi, in a sense that before I was giving you as a chef all this option, it was Golden Corral. Now, when you look at my painting, I'm only giving you a little sashimi, and that's why it's called Shibui, and Shibui means kind of a cool minimalism. Shibui means deconstruction, just keeping things that are essential, and that's why I call my paintings now Shibui,
So
because
is Shibui a style of cooking or a style of painting, or is it
oh,
a
it, a style
or
of
is it
living.
a living, or
Yeah,
is it like feng shui or
yeah, it's kind of like feng shui. It's
Okay.
Shibui is a little bit of everything. Um, I know that it can be part of cooking, like again,
Mhm,
Jiro with sushi. That's very Shibui.
mhm.
Um, and I'm trying to kind
Very
of find.
simple, fine lines.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
clean.
um, clean. Yeah, and every time I meet somebody from Japan, I always bug them about the term of Shibui,
Yeah.
and it always comes back, and they tell me it's a cool simplicity. So
Oh.
it's kind of a very visual, very kind of like a cool, you know, simplicity
Temperature cool or more like a
attitude.
hip cool?
I hope it's not hip cool. I'm thinking more like feng shui cool. Uh, yeah,
Serenity, serene.
serene. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And I don't know. I mean, again, I don't know um, if it's a minimalism. Um, I think all minimalism is kind of cool, but I guess there's bad minimalism and then cool minimalism. So
Minimalism.
yeah, I know. Yeah,
So how did you pick so I know about your art, so I'm gonna speak out of term and you can
yeah,
it, you know it, use explain it further.
but I know that you've selected like chefs that you like or dishes that you like.
Mhm,
Am I right? Is that what?
mhm.
How did you go from that? You know, that aha moment of what is it? Sushimi?
Shibui.
Shibui. Sorry,
Yeah.
sushimi is a dish. Um, from coming across Shibui and getting that light bulb moment to actually putting it down on canvas.
Again, it took a long time. Um, um, my favorite painting of all times, and it sounds really weird. This painting, it's a painting that has moved me, um, and for me, it's again the most important painting, and it's probably not the painting that most people are gonna think.
Hmm.
The painting that I'm in love with and has influenced me the most is a painting of just a black square. Like literally, if you,
Oh, yeah,
it's just a square and it's black.
on the white canvas, right?
Yeah, it's a white canvas. It's a square canvas, and then the black square. It's there,
Uh-huh.
uh, and that painting has always influenced me. That's completely Shibui. The painter is an artist called Casimir Malevich, and he created for me the ultimate minimalism. And so that painting always has affected me. The
Mhm.
first time I saw it and I heard about it, it really upset me. And I was so frustrated. I really hated it because how dare somebody paints a black square and I'm here. I was in my 20s studying. Why I even gonna bother to
Mhm.
study and try when some bastard paints a black square? And that affected me so much. And after 4 or 5 months of being really upset, I realized that it was not hate, it was just love.
Yeah.
And that painting has always affected me. So if you look at the paintings that I do now, there's always a black square, and that's kind of a self-portrait. I
Mhm.
always put like black squares. Um, with this new series that are based on food, I started just researching famous chefs and what dish made them famous. Okay, and
Mhm.
because I wanted to paint about food, I wanted to paint dishes, but if I did it myself, I don't know, like for me, just painting the food that I like, it, it was almost too ego. It was boring. It was too egotistical. It was boring because I wouldn't learn anything. So what I started doing, I started reading the history of chefs and picking dishes that really change the chef's perspective.
Right.
Yeah, for this, I have an exhibit at the United Arts Council, and what I did for this series, I did go to different chefs and ask them what is their favorite dish.
Now
What?
I'm going to interrupt you because that's one that's coming up tomorrow, right? So it's going to be a virtual tour
Yeah, yeah,
of your paintings. What can you tell me a little bit more about that?
yeah. This exhibit started in March, and I was really, really, really lucky that I was able to have a big opening. A lot of people came, and it was a big opening. But within 2 or 3 days, the exhibit got shut down because all the galleries are shut down. So tomorrow we're gonna have this kind of really cool event. We're gonna have a virtual opening, so they're gonna be looking at the paintings. Then I have a few chefs that are gonna join me, um,
Mhm.
and Angela Salamanca from
Mhm.
Centro,
Mhm.
Chris Hilton from Oro, and Kim Hammer from Bittersweet. So we're gonna talk. We're gonna talk about food, and then there's gonna be a wine tasting. So um,
A
the
virtual wine tasting?
I'm sorry.
A virtual wine tasting?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we're gonna have we're gonna have a wine store here in Raleigh, um, picked different wines, three different wines to go with three of my paintings. So they look at the paintings and it's like, okay, what what paint? I mean, sorry, what wine would go with this dish, and then they match it.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, I'll put a link down so you guys can follow it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Um, but so what goes into your selection of the dish, and how does that dish even come about? I
Yeah.
mean, and when I mean the dish, I mean the painting,
Yeah.
the dish on the painting.
Um, before the store, the wine store
Oh,
here in Raleigh is called Wine Feed.
wine feed.
Yeah, FEED. I just went blank for there for a second. Um, I started daydreaming about wine. So
Don't worry about it. We all daydream sometimes about
yeah,
wine,
yeah.
depending on the day we're having.
Um, so sorry, like how do I come up with a dish?
Yeah, like, how did you select the particular dish, and how did you get it onto the canvas? I mean,
Um,
what's that process like?
yeah. Well,
Because you
but
use part of the dish, right, to make the.
I try to. I
Uh-huh.
try to.
Okay.
For first, I looked at a lot of photographs. I do a lot of research. I look to see how it's cooked. If I have the chance, I ask the chef to see how he or she makes a dish. So there's kind of a lot of research, and then based on the photographs, then I start taking basic colors. Like let's say for Angela Salamanca, her dish is chiles en nogala,
Mhm.
which is a white sauce and all that. The chile in the painting is just a little green line in the bottom. So sometimes I just bring some of the color, maybe some of the materials. Um, I in food in the food industry, there's something called molecular gastronomy.
Mhm.
And chefs like Jose Andres,
Right.
they're famous for that.
Yeah, I was
And
gonna say he's probably the most well known.
yeah, and Ferran Adria. Ferran Adria, he's the one who started it in Spain at El Bulli. In So what literally these chefs do, they use science to break down dishes. So maybe they'll bring you a little spoon with a little bubble, but when you take the bubble, that's a clam chowder, and it tastes like clam chowder. It has all the ingredients of clam chowders, but it has been again changed in molecularly. So when I do paintings, I kind of think of me again as a chef, thinking how I can break down this dish, how I can make it into a molecular painting almost,
Right.
changing what it is, redefining it, and then putting it in painting. And it's kind of like probably the same philosophy that Ferranari and all these people had at first. How do I take the traditional food, use science, and change it into something else?
Right. Yeah. Well, that I mean, that alone could be a process. I'm assuming. Um, what what kind of materials? I mean, do you just use paint to
Um,
create them, or?
I use paint, and again, it's a working process. I mean, I use paint, I use bones, I use rice, beans, um, and it's kind of a learning in process because for one dish, Chef Kumar from Garland here in Raleigh, her dish had tamarind.
Mhm.
She's from India, and she used these fritters. They sound really good, by the way.
Mhm.
Uh,
I
these
have
fritters,
actually for.
the turmeric. Yeah,
Just in case
I got
people
my
don't know.
turmeric here too, so I'm gonna.
It's I mean, I can. Do you make paint with it? Because
Yeah,
I mean, the
yeah,
color is really strong.
yeah, and I'll show you how I do it in a second. But I'm learning. It's a working process because I know when her dish had a lot of tamarind,
Mhm.
so I went to a local market. I bought tamarind.
Oh, tamarind, like the
Yeah,
fruit tamarind. Okay,
tamarindo.
tamarindo.
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry.
tamarindo. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
más fácil en español, tamarindo.
Right.
um, and I went to the store and I bought tamarind, and I boiled it and made this beautiful, thick paste
Ooh.
out of it. I mean, it was beautiful, nice brown and all of that. But ultimately, uh, I had the painting got ruined just because the tamarind rot. It has a lot of sugar,
Oh yeah.
which I didn't know, and it rotted. So I've been a little bit smarter since then. And um, food with oils or sugar are not that good to cook.
Yeah.
You need to have acidity. You have to, and that's why what I do now, you can use, let's say, like vodka to mix your paint.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you can use rubbing alcohol.
Get tipsy in
Uh,
the way.
no, I know, I know. That's why I haven't used vodka yet because it never makes it to the paint. You can use vinegar.
Mm,
You can use vinegar, and then to keep the paint fresh, you add cloves, like 2 or 3 little cloves, into the paint jar.
sorry about that, people.
It's okay.
Really?
Yeah,
Clothes?
yeah.
Huh.
I'm
Mm,
learning again, like that. That's the one of the few paintings that kind of didn't make it, but it really affected me because before I was kind of reckless in what I was using. Now I started learning a little bit more, you know.
mm.
So a mix. It's a combination of regular paint. It's a combination of food and materials.
So I know, just because I've heard the story before,
Yes.
that you had a painting that started one way but didn't make it to the gallery the same way because you had
Yeah.
some little friends that were taking advantage of it.
Yeah. This painting was was a collaboration I did with Chef Oscar Diaz, and he is the chef Jose Sons and El Cortez
Mm.
Seafood, and super nice guy. I really love Oscar Diaz. He's super nice guy. We got along really good, and his dish was mole rojo con pollo.
So red mole with chicken.
Yeah, red mole with chicken, um, and part of the things that I put in the painting was chicken bones. Okay, there's chicken bones to represent the chicken, and the problem was that every time my dog came into the studio, he tried to he tried to rip apart. He tried to take the bone away.
Oh,
It-
that's amazing.
yeah, so I had to take the painting. It was going to the Museum of Contemporary Art in Raleigh, so it's one of the biggest exhibits I had so far,
Uh-huh.
and I didn't want this stupid dog to ruin it. So I literally took the painting off the wall, and it's a small painting because it's part of a bigger painting. I took the painting off the wall and I hid it on top of other paintings away from the dog. About 3 weeks later, when it was time to take the paintings and take it to the museum, I took out the painting, and the bone has been eaten by mice. Uh,
Oh my
yeah, they didn't eat the whole bone. They left these kind of really cool marks. I welcome the markings, but yeah, so it's it's the kind of thing that happens. I mean,
Well,
uh,
we should tell people that your studio is like a big shed outside, so it's
yeah,
not like it's not inside or anything like that.
yeah. No, it's a farm. It's kind of like a farm shed. In the back is a workspace.
Yeah.
Really nice. But it has mice, I guess.
So, can you show us a little bit how
Yeah,
you create your paints and stuff that you're using to create the food paintings
yeah.
or the
As a
dish?
matter of fact, I have, because I mix a little bit of everything. I have, and I don't know how well you can see. I don't know. My camera is
Yeah,
not the best.
the closer you get, we can.
Well,
Yeah,
here's,
that
there you
we
go.
can see that.
You can
Mm-hmm.
see some stains that are made with coffee. I
Uh-huh.
got some um, spray paint.
Uh-huh.
I also have here in the bottom. I put special varnish, and I have a drawing with pencil. And there's kind of the black square, but the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's kind of hard to see because a lot of the paintings. But if you notice, it's extremely simple. There's only the square and a couple of spray paints.
So what is
And
that called? Or does it
um,
have a name?
this one is Tamarind-Glazed Oxtails after Chef J.J. Johnson. Um, Chef Johnson, he is a chef in New York City. I think he might be part Puerto Rican.
Mm.
I know he goes to Puerto Rico a lot. I follow him on Instagram. So he goes to, but again, it's kind of like you can see the oxtails. And
Uh-huh.
again, I simplify everything, extremely simple. So you have the oxtails, and it's really, again, is Shibui. You only have four things, some stains, and and again, that's for me, that's this way. That's what's extremely important.
Yeah.
Um, I have another one, another little one. Um, well, and you
Yeah.
have again the stains with the coffee.
Uh-huh.
I have like just this little one dot, and I have um, I have the spray paint. And again, what I want to do
And what
is,
is that one?
um, you know
Dishes.
what? Sorry, it's a sea urchin in a shell. Sea urchin. I forgot what it says in español. Son
Erizo.
erizo, exactly. It's yours, and that's why I use kind of the green and the black, because sea urchins are, los erizos son bien negros, eso en la playa. They're kind of black, and this is something from my childhood in
Right.
Puerto Rico, because man, sometimes you would step on those, and that hurt. And when I was little, I got stung by una guaviva en
Ooh,
Rincón, las aguavivas.
right.
That hurt. Um, so this is the sea urchin, and it's after a chef named Jeremiah Tower. And Jeremiah Tower, uh, he in the 1970s and 80s, he was the first big superstar chef. Okay,
Mhm.
he changed how everything is done. He went to the West Coast. He went to San Francisco. He helped in a restaurant there, and he kind of became really famous. And after that, he kind of got burned out, and he just kind of disappeared. So
Another one of those people that got burnt out, huh?
yeah, yeah. At least he didn't start painting.
Right, right.
So um,
So, how do you make your paint with these? Because you use a lot of cooking materials to create your paints.
yeah. As a matter of fact, I have a little water. I have a few brushes. I'm always have brushes and paper. Uh,
Why don't
the
you move
first,
your camera down a little bit? Move your
yeah.
camera.
Let me put this here so you can see my
Yep.
my dirty desk. Okay. And again, I don't know. Uh, well, this is literally coffee. Okay. And what's kind of hypocritical of me? About a week ago, one of my kids was drawing with ketchup in her dish, and I told her to stop. I'm like, don't do that. That's you're playing with food. Don't do that. And then she looked at me. She goes, "You do that for a living." I'm like, all right.
You
So
should, Dad.
yeah. So coffee is kind of weird because if you do, it has kind of like a light, and I don't even know if you're gonna be able to see it. It has a light consistency, but when it dries, you can go back and keep making things darker. And I usually like and I have like cheap brush is falling apart, obviously when I'm in TV, which is for me is a welcome thing in my paintings. But literally, you can see all the hair, but
Ah,
the the paint, the coffee, once it dries,
uh-huh.
it becomes kind of see-through. But when you put a coat on top, then it starts to create because it absorbs by thickness. And again, you might be able to tell a
Yeah,
little bit, like
uh-huh.
around here,
Right,
that the color kind of changes because there's more coffee.
correct.
So, and this
So
goes,
you can come back and layer it, and it'll make it darker brown.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
A lot of times, what I do with the coffee, I put the paintings in the floor, and then I kind of like make splashes because I don't want the the coffee to overtake the painting because I'm more interested in this thing. So I want kind of like a background. This, I don't know if you can see. I feel like I'm in a cooking show. Go figure. um,
Well,
this
that's
is.
what we said in Vita's all about.
I know. I know. I know. Um, this is paprika, and again, have and where's my
You
little?
get hungry while you're creating these things?
Uh, sometimes I mean, more than anything, I drink a lot of coffee. So
Hmm.
and I'm gonna pour. This is this is rubbing alcohol.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we put a little bit of rubbing alcohol, and usually I have a jar, so I shake it.
Mm.
Um, but again, it might not be the best. Again, because we're doing this live, but it smells really good.
I can
Yeah,
imagine. That's what I was saying. If you get hungry, because having all these spices and everything all
yeah.
over the place, I would think
But
that it would, you know.
yeah, but this gives a nice red color. I don't know, like let me
Let's
see
see.
if you can see it. Come on.
There
There
you
you go.
go.
The,
Oh,
so you have kind of a brown color with the
yeah.
coffee. You have a nice red color with with the paprika. And let me get some green tea here. Well, let's do the turmerico again. My wife is gonna be upset when she goes, and it happens a lot. She goes to cook, and there's no spices.
Oh,
Yeah,
because you
yeah,
stole
yeah. It
it.
happens a lot. Happens more than you think. You know,
Scary.
you know what you do? You blame the kids.
Oh yeah, well,
That's
oh,
the beauty.
they're trying out what dad does.
That's the beauty of having kids. Whenever you do something, you can always blame them, and they take the
But tell
fall.
us, tell us why you're doing that. Tell us about your
Yeah.
kid.
What it? I have 5 kids. The older one, it's 14. The younger one, it's 7. As a matter of fact, today, it's my 10-year-old's birthday.
Oh,
She's
happy
turning 10, so it's
birthday!
a big deal. This is turmeric, and it should, again,
Kind of like a
it
yellow
creates,
or orange.
it creates a nice, come on,
Let's see.
it creates a nice yellow,
Uh
orange
huh.
into it. I don't know how well you
Yeah,
can see
you
the
can kind of see it. Mhm.
colors. And the green tea, which I usually use matcha green tea. I usually use matcha green tea.
Uh huh.
This one is a little bit different. This one it's in the bag, so I'm gonna literally. Hopefully, the wife doesn't gonna need green tea coffee today or tomorrow. This might be a little thick for me.
Let me. I'm gonna show people some
Yeah,
green tea
there
that
you
you
go.
see.
Um, this green tea, I'm not too sure how well it's gonna work because the green tea that I like to use to paint is literally the expensive stuff. It's the matcha green tea, which is more powder, and that's what the traditional tea ceremony they do. They put
Mm,
this tea in a bowl, and
mm,
it's we went through a traditional Japanese tea ceremony once, and they put it in the bowl, they put the hot water, and then they have a special brush, and they do it. In the meantime, this guy is doing it, and his wife is telling us all about the tradition. And the only thing I could think about was about paint. Like when he was doing it, I'm like, oh man, this would make. I don't know how good this is gonna be because it's very chunky,
uh-huh.
but we'll give it a try. We'll put a little bit of this. I'm not too sure if it's gonna give enough. Maybe if, uh, yeah, maybe if the water it's hot, then it would have made
Yeah, yeah.
better
I
tea.
was gonna
So
say maybe hot water.
yeah,
I know
so
I've
yeah,
stained clothes with tea before.
yeah, yeah. Now this one, again, it's just I like the textures of the tea, but it's not giving much color. Okay, so we have
See. Uh-huh.
so far we have coffee, paprika, turmeric, and green tea that didn't come out. But
Go figure.
yeah, it happens a lot. But
Yeah.
as as the as the paint dries, the color changes. Okay.
Yeah. I see
Um,
especially the paprika is getting really dark.
yeah, yeah. And usually the matcha green tea comes out with this really thick, beautiful green. You
Mm.
know, and it's interesting because again, um, and I guess I'll change this. Mira, se cayó.
Uh-uh.
Okay, there you go. Uh, it's interesting because the color will change. The color will change through time. The painting changes.
Hold on a second. Hold on,
Yeah,
hold on.
yeah,
Somebody is sending me a
yeah,
email. La bendita vaina esta no quiere cerrar el email. Okay. So in time, the paint will change colors?
Yeah, the colors, the the paintings will change colors.
Mm.
Okay, that's why I don't use 100% food paints that I make. They're more like inks,
Mm.
and some of them. I mean, I welcome the changes. I welcome because a painting is a living thing. So even if it gets hit by mice, again, I welcome it. Some I know some painters, some students that I have tried to teach how to paint with food, they have
Mm.
a really hard time about that. They want to have something that would last for hundreds of years.
Okay.
It's like, no, you have to be a little bit open minded. It looks good today, might change, but that's the beauty of, again, that's the beauty of eating with natural living materials, that things will change.
Right.
Yeah. So
So how many drawings, no, how many paintings do you have in this series?
well, in this exhibit, I have 9 paintings,
Hmm.
and they're all local chefs. From when I say local, from Raleigh.
North Carolina.
Um,
Mhm.
Overall, I'm not too sure because I have done drawings, I have done paintings.
Mm.
Um, I think I think the hardest part for me to when I started this series was to stop. Like literally, the paintings can be done fairly quickly
Mm.
because they're so simple,
Mm.
and that for me was the biggest challenge. That it's almost a I have to come in and meditate and be really zen and know when the paint doesn't need me. Because at one point, it's kind of like a kid,
Right.
like a child or children. They stop needing you, but
Hmm.
you're still bugging them because you start to need them. So, so like it's hard because I think the biggest thing when you're a painter or any part of you're creative, it's that you you overwork things. You like how it's going, so you keep going and going, and then suddenly you overwork.
Hmm.
And that doesn't work for me anymore because the whole point for me is simplicity. So, so it takes a lot of courage for me to do it, because I have to go in the studio, and it's literally um, just you do it. It's one punch. I need to do it, and that's it. Um,
Right.
in the 1970s, there was a movie called The Deer Hunter
Sure.
with Robert De Niro and all that. And what one of the things I remember the most, it's that the whole challenge that Robert De Niro's character had is that he would only use one shot. Like he wouldn't go there with a machine gun and shoot the thing. It was always you chase, you do, and once you have that one clear shot, then you take it. And it's kind of like that when I go paint. I don't. I need to be ready to just take one shot and that's it. So
So what inspires you? Like, do you have to have a setup? You know, some people have to have everything in their place in order to create. Some people like blasting music, and you know, the
yeah.
more jarbled their brain is, the better they produce. You know, what is your thing?
um, I'll tell you, I don't like to paint at night,
Mm.
and it's kind of like a cliche because I know all the painters, all the artists would tell you, hey, I paint out in the night. That's the perfect time. I never really liked it, but at one point I was okay with it. I would paint into late at night. I don't like to paint at night. I rather paint in the morning and get all these things out of the way, and then at night is to recharge batteries. So the one thing I do like is painting during the day. I guess I can drink a lot of coffee and the daylight and open windows. I like that a lot.
Mm.
Um, I don't. I might listen to podcast. I might listen to some podcast. I know I have some incense in my studio,
Mhm.
so I might put incense. Maybe listen to podcast. Maybe some music. But but I want. But I'm not that big listening to music when I paint. It's mostly like a podcast. I would even watch TV if I had a television. It's it's not that romantic.
Well, we've gotten to the point where I have a segment called 5 on 5.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you 5 questions, and hopefully you won't take more than 1 minute per the answer.
Now, I probably ruin it. I'm probably going to tell you the answer within 5 seconds, and then we have
Oh,
we have
no,
55
no, no.
seconds of silence.
Really analyze this. Really
Okay.
analyze it. So the first one I have is, what is the first food memory that comes to mind that really changed your life?
As a kid, I would say um, steak and fries. That was my favorite dish, and I know for my birthdays, my treat was to go to a restaurant and have a steak frite, the steak medium rare, and French fries. That for me, it's it's probably the earliest childhood memory. Even though somehow, now that you ask me, I have an image of my granddad uh, eating a sopao and a sopao and him sweating because I remember thinking, and again, I was must have been really young because he died when I was fairly young, but
Mm.
me thinking, man, it's really hot, and they have a handkerchief and they're cleaning and they're eating like hot asopao, which is a soup. So
But in the
asopao,
tropics, eating hot
yeah,
means you sweat a lot.
yeah, no, no. And when I was in my 20s, Thai food, like the first time I ate Thai food, that changed the game for me. It was something brand new. It wasn't Chinese food or Italian food. It was something that I have never tasted, and I was in love with it immediately.
So, what is the one dish that to you really says family? You know, like the, once you see it, you say it, or whatever, it just brings memories of family.
Um, I would think my mom's salad. My mom was is a great cook. She could cook Puerto Rican food. She's from Puerto Rico. She's from Barrio Percha y Morovis. So she's really, really my grandfather was un jibarito. He worked in a coffee plantation.
Oh,
So, but she could cook a lot. She was a great cook, and she would make this green salad. We would finish every meal eating this green salad, and she would make this vinaigrette with garlic and Dijon mustard, and I always love spicy, like over the top tasting food.
mm-hmm.
So I would say that vinaigrette and that green salad for me brings me to like a little happy place.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah,
Well, when you're eating a good meal, what emotions does it conjure up in you? I mean, some people it's just like a euphoric feeling. Some people are.
yeah.
What is a good meal?
Okay.
Or
Is this
that dish that maybe you haven't had in a long time and you have it and you're like, oh my God.
is this question number 3?
This is question number
Okay, so it's not a follow up. Okay, so I got another minute. Uh, food that what's the question? A dish that
emotions. What does it conjure up? A good meal. What kind of emotions does it conjure up in you?
I tell you the truth, it makes me laugh.
Ah.
Like if I eat something that's really good, it makes me laugh. And I'm a soccer freak, and
Mm-hmm.
it's the same kind of emotion when a player makes this beautiful move, and the only thing I can do is just kind of start laughing. It's like I'm okay, that's really good. And I think uh, that would be. I mean, if the food is good, you just look at each other, whoever is sharing the food with you, and just look at each other and smile. It's like no words needed. That smile.
Right. This is
Yeah,
it.
it's almost like humbling. You laugh, like that's it.
That's
So
it.
yeah, so laugh.
Yeah. So number 4,
Mhm.
what dish or meal do you wish you could cook and why?
Hmm. I would say pad thai.
Thai.
Pad thai because it's my favorite dish, and I have tried it before, but it's not the same. So, um, pad thai. Yeah,
Yeah, there are some Asian dishes that I wish I could make as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the last question,
Yep.
and it may be a funky one, but what is the oddest food pairing you like to eat that other people just like cringe at? That they're just like, oh my Lord, what the heck are you doing?
Um, I don't know. I do like fried chicken with ketchup,
Huh.
and I don't know. Like I thought it was normal, But then when I do it, people tell me, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm putting ketchup in my fried chicken," and they're like, "No, that's not right."
Right.
So I think ketchup with fried chicken, something that I find delicious. That for me, it's like eating lobster. It's drinking gas station coffee with a bag of Doritos Cool Ranch. For me, like literally, like if that might be my last meal. Like,
Well, speaking of Doritos, I kind of have one of those
yeah,
because uh, those little Haagen-Dazs individual ice creams.
yeah, 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 yeah,
I love taking Doritos, not the ranch, the cheese ones,
yeah.
and putting them in my ice cream.
Hello, yeah. There you go. You know,
Crazy too.
Haagen Dogs. Most people think it's a foreign ice cream,
No,
but it's not. It's made in New Jersey.
yeah, I know.
Yeah, they just
I mean, the original brand name is, it's from
yeah,
abroad over the pond, but
yeah, yeah. But I think, as a matter of fact, I think the brand name, the name is, I think it's made up. I think it's just branding 100%. They said let's make something that sounds expensive,
uh,
and they did it, and people think it's really expensive foreign ice cream, and it's not. It's just made up here.
oh, because I think I've been in Belgium and I think I've seen
Okay,
Haagen-Dazs, and
I might be wrong then,
I don't
but
know. We'll have to like look
wait,
it up.
that's
Or if somebody wants, that's watching
comment.
right now, look it up and put a link in the
There
in the
you go.
comments
Yeah,
so we
yeah.
can.
So
But
if the people in Huff and Dogs are watching us,
yeah, come up, folks in Haagen-Dazs, tell us the
yeah,
story.
yeah.
um,
I'll paint. I'll paint with Haagen Dogs if they answer.
yeah, that would
Yeah,
be awesome.
yeah.
So, well, we've come to the end of our hour here. I have learned a lot, and I'm sure that I have much more to learn from you. And I'll have to cook for you one of these days.
Tasty. No, yeah. I'm
We'll
maybe
have
pad
more
thai,
stuff to talk
but
about.
yeah. No, if we next time we do this, you need to cook, and I want you to cook some algo puertorriqueño, mano. Algo ahí que me dé hambre.
I
Sí.
was thinking of making you something, but then I'm like, well, that's kind of mean. I'm making it. I'm gonna
No,
eat
I
it
know.
and
I
just
know.
watch it.
You know, something I was thinking the other day was guineitos en escabeche.
Oh, claro.
Yeah, I don't know why. I was just daydreaming about guineitos en escabeche.
Which is basically green bananas
Yeah,
and in a onion and olive and garlic
yeah.
sauce kind of thing.
No, it's really, really good.
It is,
Somehow I was having this kind of flashback.
yeah.
Um,
Well, we'll have to make them.
yeah, yeah,
But again, the exhibit is for First Friday
yeah,
for the Raleigh United Arts Council. First Friday,
yeah,
that's where your exhibit is, at the
yeah,
United Arts Council,
yeah,
and it'll be virtual,
yeah,
correct?
yeah. Again, it's at the United Arts Council. So if you go to the website at United Arts Council, there's links.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, it starts on May 1st, which is Friday tomorrow, and it starts at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Because if you're in the West Coast, you can join us at 3 p.m.
Yeah.
If you're in France, I guess that would be like at midnight. But yeah,
Still doable.
and that's a really cool thing, which I think is going to start changing, is that these online openings, I think, are going to be the new norm, which is great because you can have people from all over the world, all over the country joining in. So I think it's something really interesting.
Well, and not only that, but it gives access to folks that otherwise might not have access to the arts
Yeah,
through a medium that they're using every day,
yeah,
phone or computer.
yeah,
Because just about everybody nowadays has a smartphone that they can use.
yeah.
They're also, if I'm not mistaken, it'll be on their Facebook page as a live, right? For the United Arts Council?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
So there's plenty of ways to look for it, either the computer or on Facebook Live, if that's what your access
yeah.
to.
And also, I mean, again, like we mentioned before, there's going to be 3 great culinary experts. So if not for me, don't worry about me. Watch it for them. You
Yeah.
might get some really good information.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much, George, for being with us. And I just love you to death. I love your family. I think you guys are a great example of what it is to be a modern day family. Um,
Thanks.
and wish you the best tomorrow with the exhibit.
Thanks. Love you too. Love your family too. So feelings are mutual. Thanks. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this page. Oh, and follow me on social media at Lisette Invita. And remember, subscribe to my YouTube channel. See you next time.